And I was curious, so do you have any hacks for when you find yourself in that high angst or um, a state of frustration or anger to be able to kind of pull yourself out to soften it a bit so that you don't misstep or you don't
Hmm.
you're not as easily influenced, all of those things.
Yeah, I feel you. I think all of learning and all of life is state dependent. Our
Mhm.
emotions, when think about it, we're not logical. We're biological. When you think about dopamine and oxytocin and serotonin and endorphins, we are this like chemical feeling soup, and we don't do things logically as
Mhm.
much as we do it emotionally, right?
Mhm. Right.
And so if we're in a confused, fearful state, um, we're not gonna parent the best. We're not gonna study for that exam the best. We're not gonna give that wonderful toast at that wedding that we want to, or be able to perform on the field, right? And
Mhm.
so chronic stress, it actually shrinks the human brain. When we're creating cortisol and adrenaline all the time, it puts us in fight or flight or freeze. And
Mhm.
that's not a place you want to live and build, your dreams and create, your desired life. Chronic fear, by the way, suppresses the human immune system. A whole
Mhm.
area of psychoneuroimmunology, right? That it makes you more susceptible to colds, the flus, the viruses, and so
Yep.
like, so fear is certainly a virus, into itself, and it really compromises. And when we're in fight or flight or we're freezing, the challenge is we're not accessing the parts of ourselves, that executive functioning where we could, that higher order rational thinking, that those creative centers of our mind. And so if you get flustered, right, from, oh my god, I'm so nervous, I have to give this presentation, or I'm scared of approaching that person I'm attracted to, or studying for this exam, the first thing to do is, obviously, you want to control how you feel. I think it's important. Everyone has their to-do list, but I think, what if we cultivated a to-feel list every single day? These are three emotions. Like, I want to build and develop. Because emotions are, everybody has a set point, right? Like,
Mhm.
they just have a set point for happiness or a set point for stress, and that's kind of like their norm. But I
Mhm.
also feel like it's a muscle too. That the more we like, we look for stuff that's funny, or we watch funny things, we go to comic clubs, whatever, then we cultivate those things. Same thing with love, or anything.
Mhm.
So I think one of the questions you ask yourself before you need to perform is not, if anyone here is facing a dilemma or a decision or a difficulty, most people ask, what do I need to do? I would say, step back from that question. Instead of saying, what do I need to do now? Who do I need to be?
Mhm.
Right? And come from, because if you're going to choose to be compassionate, in a difficult, like, maybe you're entering an argument with your significant other or a child, then if you choose to be compassionate, then the behavior takes care of itself, right? If you choose to be loving or understanding, then the,
Mhm.
the behavior happens, the actions happen more naturally. I think the fastest way to change the way you feel is through our body. Sometimes it's hard just to, like, mentally just change things in your mind.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
think sometimes when we move our body in different ways, it puts us in a different place.
Mhm.
So, and that could be something as getting up and dancing, or listening to some music, putting a big silly smile on your face, something
Mhm.
that gets you out of that mode, because and then also, you generally changes the feeling pattern of the people around us also as well, because it's unexpected, right? It kind of
Mhm.
interrupts their normal train of feeling also. Um, so I would say, yes, of course, we have autonomy on how we feel. Nobody can, even though sometimes we feel like, oh, it, we react to the environment, to media, to politics, to the weather. Um, we decide, right? One of my favorite books is a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And I
Mhm.
think it's important that we could choose what experiences mean to us. And so what I would say is, always start with our body, like moving our body, putting our shoulders back, our physiology affects our
Mhm.
psychology in a big way. Um, and the second thing is just to remind ourselves that, we are not our thoughts, right? That we don't have to believe everything that we think. And
Mhm.
it's easy to change our frame of mind by just saying, if you're in a hot debate with somebody, asking a different question, like, what's silly about this? Do I really want to be right, or do I want to be in love? Changing your focus onto something that's might be more empowering. Sometimes what we resist in life tends to persist, right? You
Mhm.
fight, and then that person, like, kind of digs their heels in, and then you're just like, then you just feel exhausted, and you can even just forget about what everything, why it even started from the beginning. But I would say we control the way we feel. And going back to choice and the power of choice, we could always decide what to think, what we act, and those actions lead to experience. That
Mhm.
experience lead to feelings, and those feelings feed those thoughts again. So it becomes very
Mhm.
cyclical. And we have a choice point at all times to decide what those things are.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're definitely stronger and have more control than we realize. But we always control the controllables, even with children. Like if it's a bad weather, outside, bad, and there's a judgment on it's raining and or
Uh-huh.
storming. Like even what we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation, it's like if we act, oh, this sucks, it's so bad outside, and we're teaching a child like your feelings and emotions are dependent on the weather, and even
Right.
something subtle like that, right?
Mhm.
And we just give up our agency or our sovereignty, to something outside of ourselves.
Mhm. No, that's one of my favorite books. I think it's one of those that every single person needs to read. It's
Yeah.
just enlightening. You're like, if someone can go through the darkest possibilities of human existence and
Hmm.
come out the way that he did and with his reference, anything is possible.